How about you,
You can
Bridget?
hear me
You
chewing
recording?
my snack.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that. After Jay complained to me about eating
On microphone, yeah. Like, it's... Because here's the thing. I've started putting in more work into editing these podcasts. I'm not going to go through, like, section by section trying to, like, lower specific levels in there. Whatever sounds happen in the background during recordings...
Everyone pull out an apple. Eat the most conspicuous food in the world when trying to be silent.
If I hear a car horn going off in the background of Evie's recording, it's staying in the final cut.
Yeah, I don't expect you to go back in there and fix like all of my fix my sibilance. I know it's bad. You don't have to tell me.
what's a sibilance?
Sibilance is when the high notes get in the microphones and you can't seem to get rid of them.
It
It happens a lot when I was recording music too.
It's the S equivalent of like a pop.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, you mean
of
like
your
wasps?
plosives.
Should we talk
wasps.
more about wasps?
Wasps.
Wasps are fuckers.
Yeah, wasps suck.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Like, I as a child had like a massive fear of bees. Like,
Oh, same.
When I would like be hanging out with friends like on the playground and stuff, as soon as one would like get near me, specifically because like we had those like massive black bees like out in Southern California. So I would see one of those and I would like freak the fuck out and like run like 10 yards away.
No, yeah.
Something like that.
I would cover
from
my
being-
ears so it wouldn't crawl into my brain. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, fuck those things. Fuck them. I grew up in the
However-
desert too. Shit sucked.
However, over the years, I've like unlearned my fear of bees. Wasps? No. I
yeah.
still don't fuck with that. We had one get into the apartment like, was it this year?
Might have been.
Yeah, we had one get into the apartment this year, and like we were basically on the other side of the apartment. Like it had a stronghold over by the windows because we were like, I don't want to deal with this shit. And eventually we took like a spray bottle to it, and it was fine.
And I had to kill one myself one time during like a stream. Which, going off of all the other great streamers have had to do that, that means I've got a great career ahead of me. But
You were texting me while I was at work, being like, "There's some wasps in the apartment."
I'm
What
calling
do I
people to see if
do?"
someone can remove it, and they're saying there's nothing they can do unless there's like a hive, and I don't know if there's a hive. I don't want to look.
I was just like, well, you have to be a brave girl, and you have to deal with it, unfortunately.
Shit sucked.
Do you
Yeah,
see this? Do you know what this is? This is a wasp. Its mission in nature is to fuck shit up wherever it goes. It does not pollinate things. It does not make honey. It is not a bee. It is a motherfucking wasp. You cannot battle the wasp. The wasp is never alone. It always is accompanied by other, even more violent and aggressive wasps, all of which are, in turn, accompanied by even more. When you see a wasp, do you know what to do? You stand the fuck still, chill the fuck out, and hope the wasp doesn't put you on its list of shit it wants to fuck up today. You stand right there and wait for the wasp to finish its business and move on with its rampage, and then you go the fuck home.
Thank you for that dramatic reading of that Onion article. I appreciate it.
It's true. It's just actually true.
There's a wasp that has just like taken up residence in my driver's side mirror, in the driver's side, like, you know, side mirror of my car. Every so often, like I'll see it, like I'll pull up somewhere and just see it just like crawl in behind the mirror itself. It's just like, well, that's just there. I just have to know I just have to know that's there from now on.
Cockroaches break down like garbage and shit. Like wasps, you could kill all the wasps in the world and nothing would change. The environment would be fine.
Evie, that wasp is going. That wasp nest that's like slowly growing behind your like that side mirror there is eventually going to be a real special gift for whoever you sell that car to.
Oh, my sister. Yeah.
What reviews connected by cast or crew, deciding the next film, that's the gist. Put it on the list.
So currently it is Black Friday, and Crunchyroll has two doorbuster deals that are
hate that.
still
I
in
hate the term
stock.
doorbuster
so
so
much.
much. Yeah, because it's basically there's truth to it. Thankfully, at least as of me looking it up this morning, it doesn't look like there's been any deaths. So thankfully,
I don't
that's
think
good.
that's a thing anymore. I don't think
Are they
people
not
care
keeping it
about
updated?
Black.
Well, Black Friday as a concept has basically like evaporated ever since like the ever like progressing like level of technology around like televisions basically like plateaued. That was like the height of Black Friday.
Yeah, that was the
shows.
height of I'm going to kill you if you don't give me this
TV
this
here.
Yeah.
But specifically, I wanted to mention that the 2 doorbuster deals Crunchyroll has are very clearly for 2 products they cannot get rid of.
Word.
Pray tell.
One is Berserk logo polar fleece, which appears to be a crappy fleece that is coated in a bunch of like the curse symbol from Berserk.
Oh, okay.
This is normally $100. I don't know why.
Well, I wouldn't buy that.
But don't worry, for 24 hours, it's 50 for some. Like, it doesn't make it any better. And the other thing is truly an item that for some reason was released in this modern age, even though it's like, it's something I would expect, like, I don't know, Bandai Visual to put out mid-2000s. This is a normally $550 box set of Code Geass. That comes with a full chess set along with the whole show.
That's so fucked. Is it like at least a customized like chess set? Like, is it like custom to like Code Geass? Is it modeled after the chess set in that show?
Yeah, I guess. But the thing is, they're just black and white chess pieces. They're not very distinctive.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that like that justifies it, more that it becomes slightly more understandable to charge an arm and a leg for it.
It does technically come with a few other things you might be interested in. It comes with a Geass symbol necklace,
Okay.
a Lancelot key USB.
I can't even remember which character Lancelot
I
is.
actually
the
know
robot.
nothing about this property.
It's the robot. It's not a character.
Oh, okay. Just goes to prove my point even more so.
And a frame picture of a clamp art piece.
And this is a limited edition thing, right?
Well, I mean, as limited as released last year and still on sale.
I mean, something can still be a limited edition and not really sell well. That they just poorly considered.
They didn't limit it enough. They assumed how many people would want to spend that for
Really,
that.
that's probably the biggest mistake of like those really like pricey Bandai limited edition things, is because they want to maximize just how much profit they get from it. They overestimate how many niche fans they have for a thing.
Yeah.
So they overprice it because they're like, let's get as much as we can out of this, and then it turns out this thing isn't popular anymore and no one fucking buys it.
Hey, it does come with a certificate of authenticity and a 6-month free Crunchyroll premium subscription for new members only.
That describes even more for me why you gotta hike the price up.
For new members, only.
Anyone can be a new member. All you have to do is use a new email address.
Yeah.
Also a $60 discount code for the Crunchyroll store. I bet you that code has expired.
You know, everything that you're listing off only more so explains why it was initially costing $500.
Yeah.
One of these reviews is 1 star, missing the movies and coupon.
Fucking Crunchyroll scheming me out of my goddamn coupon.
Because, like,
anyways,
this has the full Code Geass selection. It has
What
the
are we talking
show.
about
It
this
has
week?
Akito, The Exiled, you know, the OVA series, directed by famed director.
apparently this week we're discussing the Crunchyroll doorbusters.
This is
just
14
really-
Blu-ray discs.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, everyone.
Either way,
Hey.
it's only discounted to $200. It's still too much.
I've never seen Code Geass. This is all
That-
nonsense to me. You're speaking gibberish.
Honestly, Bridget, that actually sounds like a fair deal. For everything that you listed off, that actually sounds like a fair deal, $200. That sounds more like what that is actually worth.
Now, how many people do I know who will spend $200 on that? Can't think of one, but I'm sure they're out there
Maybe
somewhere.
you, Bridget,
Maybe.
but that is the only person.
Only one I could possibly think of.
And the
Anyways,
other
hi,
thing
everyone.
is
Hey, everyone!
Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll shipping has gotten so bad that things just ship in broken states and they do nothing about it. So this collector's edition, even though you're paying that much money, it is going to be shipped to you then.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Put It on the List, the queer movie podcast where every other week we discuss a movie of one of our members choosing, with the one catch being that we have to connect it to the previous movie by either cast or crew. How do you like that for a clean intro? That's the cleanest I've ever fucking got it.
That was beautiful.
My name is Jay.
My name is Bree.
I'm Evie.
I'm Bridget, and I
The
just want
person
to
that just
say...
spent the last 15 minutes
I just want to
talking
say
about
they're
Crunchyroll
Code Geass
doors.
movies, so if we truly wanted to, we could have all 3 Code Geass movies plus
Last week,
the movie
I made
sequel.
I'm good.
Last week, I made everybody watch Freddy Got Fingered.
And then Bridget saved us from that dark fate with Terminator Dark Fate. But we'll get around to talking about that because before...
Icebreaker question.
No,
baby.
it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded.
Oh, yeah, that's...
We ease into the... How many
let's mix
times
it up.
do I have to teach you this lesson, podcaster?
All right.
Evie, how was your Thanksgiving? We're recording this on Black Friday, if we couldn't tell from the last 10 minutes of podcast.
It was good. I went to visit my sister, and she had a lunch / dinner at her place. She had her in-laws were in town as well. Got to see the Nibblings. They were lovely, and the various dogs and cats that are at my sister's place. It's a nice time.
Gotta say, that was a fine selection of dogs and cats.
No, yeah, those
they're-
are
going
they're
on for those
wonderful.
photos. What were some of their names, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, so they got a big doofy white dog, who's like a Labrador Husky mix or something. His name is Shadowfax. They got a little goofy fuzzy potato dog who is his name is Moose.
Hell yeah.
They got like a sweet little calico, or like a little tabby kitty, whose name is Gimli, and he's just like the sweetest little fella. He's adorable. I love that cat.
Top tier pet names.
They have I didn't send you a picture of this one, but they got a orange and white, just kind of like, just a guy. Just a little guy cat named Coco. And they recently got a little gray and white rescue named Ducky. who was going to live
yeah.
with my other sister, but it turns out she's allergic. So
Aw.
yeah, so Ducky ended up with my sister who already has a bunch of animals.
Gotcha.
For sure.
Bridget, how was your Thanksgiving? You do anything special?
Oh, thank you.
I ask knowing exactly what you did on Thanksgiving.
Well, I wanted people to experience that warm, fuzzy feeling of going over to a family member's house and being like, what the fuck is this shitty movie on the TV? And so I played a bunch of Flash games based on officially licensed, at least most of them. I'm not sure about the Elmo one. I have some suspicions about the Elmo one, although somebody pointed out that it is probably the Dutch version, so that's probably why it was so weird. But the Dancing Elmo.
Very on brand movie Flash games.
Oh yeah,
what-
don't worry. I ended on the Paul Blart 2 Flash game for when we, you know what, I could have done that. I could have made us watch Paul Blart 2 to get in the
We
seasonal
really
spirit.
appreciate your restraint.
After the Freddy Got Finger recording we had, there's no way you would have had the guts to make us watch Paul Blart.
Yeah. that was a heated episode.
We almost scrapped it.
Yeah, me and Bree did not really do much. She spent most of the day just working on her VTuber stuff, and
I'm really glad that most of my family lives like thousands of miles away because I don't want to see them. But we had a nice night in. I worked on the VTuber. She's done and she works. I'm happy to report. So the upgrade will happen very soon.
Bridget, what was that?
Oh,
for?
I did one other thing. I watched a fantastic anime movie you can now watch on Netflix, which is Mononoke Phantom in the Rain.
For sure. I'm looking forward to checking that out eventually. I've always really liked the director who did Mononoke and the like. Yeah, I played through Gato Roboto, which is basically just Metroid, but you play as a cat in a mech suit.
I'm definitely going to have to play it myself. It looks so cool.
It's cute. It's fun. It gets it's a little bit difficult at times. I started like a very short backlog list of games to like start playing and plucking away at, because every time I look at my Steam list, it's just paralysis of choice. So I was like, let me just pick out things that I actually have been wanting to like at least taste for the past like year or so, and dedicate some time to either play through those or at least try them out. Like I also tried Umihara Kawase, which is like an old SNES platformer.
I saw you boot that up and I was very confused. I was like, that doesn't seem like a J game. Why is she booting up?
You know, I've watched enough Tim Rogers videos over the last few years, and that's been one of those ones that's come up in conversation, and it looks neat. And I tried it out, and I was like, yeah, this is definitely a difficult SNES platformer. I'm not going to finish this, but it was neat playing around with it for like an hour or so.
Yeah, there are multiple games in that series, sometimes having crossing over with Cotton.
I don't know what that is.
Cotton, the original cute 'em up.
I don't know what
Cotton
that
is a series of like shmups of various kinds that all revolve around a cute anime witch.
And a cute anime witch that
Evie,
wants
thank
to
you for
eat
actually
candy.
Evie, thank you for actually explaining what it is instead of just saying, cotton. it's just like, yes, I know the physical product of cotton, but when I tell you I don't know what a thing is, that means I don't know what it is, and
Do
repeating
you know what a
it.
cute 'em up is?
Yes, I do know what a
Yes.
cute 'em up is. It's a shoot 'em up, but you play as a cute creature.
Jay, you told me about your project to like, kind of enumerate like your backlog list project, and I was inspired to do one myself, but I think I immediately fell off the rails, because what I did was I started writing down a list, and I got some number into the list, and now I was like, I need to have a second list that is like a longer list that is like from that I determine which games I really want to play and go on the real list. And then
you fool, you absolute buffoon. The mindset that you have to take it with, you have to like specifically be like, I don't know how much you do this, Evie, but like whenever I'm just like bored and there isn't anything that's immediately like popping out to me, I will literally just scroll down my Steam library, like trying to find fucking anything. And the way I found my list was like, I was looking at it and just considering like, these are the things that I always like hesitate on, that I'm like, yeah, I want to check that out. I don't know if I want to dedicate the time to it quite yet, though. Let me continue down the list. And usually what ends up happening is by the time I get to the bottom, I've forgotten about what the fuck was at the top that I wanted to consider. So that's essentially how I built mine, was just what are the ones that I always pause on every single time that I'm looking at choices.
That's a good way to do it.
I did buy 2 games from the Steam sale.
What'd you pick up?
Anno, which looks like a cool cyberpunk anime game. I know sometimes it's bundled with Valhalla.
So Bridget, you're referring to Anno Mutation M, because I saw this in our shared Steam library. You are not referring to the series Anno, like, 1800 or 2241 or whatever, which are just like a series of like city building
4X
strategy games.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, right, those Anno, yes.
That's why I was confused, because that's what my mind went to, was those Anno games.
I also bought. So Dawn was retweeting this game that has a certain, like, PC 98 art style and stuff, and I looked at it and I couldn't see it on Steam because for some reason it was adult.
Oh.
And
what game
sure
is this?
enough, it's also Carolbit sent me this, and I think it's because Dawn
Had reposted it.
reposted it. It appears to be a giantess shmup that has porn elements. That is now part of your Steam library, by the way. So if you ever...
Oh, that's what that is. I wondered what that was and why it was.
What's that girly themed arena shooter game that I'm waiting to come out?
Yes.
In a...
Now, I don't know if it's good. It might be really bad. But we now own it, and it was on sale for $4. So,
Well, the one I mentioned, I've been waiting for a while. Once it pops on, it'll tell me on Steam, and I'll be like, "But I already, like, a while ago, I put aside the money that was gifted to me on Steam for I'm buying this when it comes out."
Evie, were you able to get your list back on the rails at all?
Oh yeah, I winnowed it down to a list I put into my Steam collection. Now my problem is that like I don't just have a Steam library, right? I have the Epic games that I have been collecting for the past 3 years. I have a increasing number of games on Good Old Games. I do have stuff on itch as well, and so it's like, it's just how do I get this all in one place? And like, that's not even talking about games I would need to emulate. So it's just like so much.
well, there's a little thing called GeForce Now that'll...
No, don't. That's
won't.
just... Yeah, I was gonna say, that's only adding on to what Evie is talking about there. So we do have icebreaker questions, but we didn't really get any new ones in this last call to action I did on social media. So I have one that I kind of just thought of.
Let's go.
Based on what Bridget was talking about a second there of like wanting to emulate the experience of like going over to a relative's house and like them having shitty movies like just kind of on in the background on TV. Does anyone have like a particular like go-to movie that they always put on in the background like for those kinds of family gatherings, or a regular one that they feel like they always see that they feel like is unique to their household or the like?
I don't put I feel like a lot of times that role in the family gatherings I would have, or like I would be a part of, would be for stuff like the Game Show Network or like sports. Like,
Sure.
yeah. But more
Football.
recently, yeah, pretty much like football, or like they were watching golf or some shit. Like but more recently, like my sister will often have like her kids will have some movie or another on their main TV, and it'll be some animated brain rot that is whatever.
Pregnant Elsa and Spider-Man going on in the background.
There's a third Trolls movie, was the one that I saw yesterday.
Trolls World
Sorry.
Tour.
No, Trolls Band Together, which is
Oh
a
my
sequel
God.
to World Tour, and it has Eric Andre in a major speaking role.
It's
Get that bag.
so weird whenever I consider that like Eric Andre is able to get like major roles like that in Hollywood, considering his whole deal on Adult
Yeah.
Swim.
Yeah, it's weird because like you would think that like if you have Eric Andre in a movie, like you would be able to be like, oh, that's Eric Andre, but no, he's just kind of a dude in this movie, and I didn't realize it was him until like I looked up the voice cast list.
Wild.
What about you, Bridget? Do you have one? Considering the experience that you were trying to emulate, I feel like you have to have at least one.
Well, I mean, it used to be a family tradition to watch the Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol if it's like this time of year.
Why? I have to ask why.
It's an okay film. I mean, it's just a Christmas Carol.
But why
This is-
Mr. Magoo specifically?
This is animated, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Clarence,
This is
I wanna
not
live
like
again.
the live action shitty Mr. Magoo.
But like that doesn't take away from the question of why Mr. Magoo specifically. Like there's so many
'Cause
variations
it's a
of
musical.
There's other like I feel like there's got to be other Christmas musicals out there too. So why Mr. Magoo?
I don't know.
Like there has to be a reason that
I
it's
mean,
Mr. Magoo
My mom
specifically.
liked Mr. Magoo.
Yeah, the Mr. Magoo part isn't that weird to me, because like there's 1,000 different variations of A Christmas Carol, right? You got your Disney Christmas Carol, you got your with
Muppet
Scrooge,
Christmas Carol.
Muppet
yeah.
Christmas Carol.
That's really the best one.
You got your Jim Carrey Christmas Carol.
You got two separate Flintstones Christmas carols for some reason.
If it were a Flintstones Christmas Carol was like the family tradition, that's psycho shit. Like I wouldn't get that. Yeah.
I feel like I would understand the Flintstones one more than the Mr. Magoo
The Mr.
one, per
Magoo
se.
one has more artistry. You're laughing, but
Oh,
leaving
my
the
brain!
podcast.
Ow!
you're laughing, but that animation studio was doing different things than what Hanna-Barbera.
They're moving different.
I'm sorry. Someone saying
Literally.
Someone saying the Mr. Magoo one had more artistry is like a sleeper cell activation phrase. I can't.
A sleeper agent is gonna hear this and just start like, oh my god,
Oh my.
oh my lord. And
The,
given the,
the thing
dates
about
of,
that movie is, like, obviously you don't know, but, like, the Mr. Magoo shtick is, like, barely in that movie. It's very serious.
why did they make? I don't know.
Don't worry about that.
Anyway, so yeah, there's that.
You got one, Bri?
You know, I lived in a very not super festive family, which is funny because I was raised
Also,
as
Uncle
Jewish.
Buck.
Let me speak. I was raised Jewish, and the other side of my family was Christian. So, like, we'd go over there and watch them celebrate Christmas. We'd get a sweater or some shit, and it'd be whatever. And we neither of us were really huge about it. We got together, we talked a bit, and just whatever. My father would force us all to listen to Adam Sandler sing the Hanukkah song. Thank Christ he didn't show us the movie. And
What's the song?
no,
No, not Adam Sandler. The song that your dad would always play on like Thanksgiving.
on Thanksgiving, that's
Yes.
Alice's Restaurant.
For some reason, Bree's dad has a weird habit of every Thanksgiving he has to throw on Alice's Restaurant, which for people who don't know is this like long meandering fucking like song.
Yeah,
How long is that song? It's like 10 minutes or
it's
something.
long. Like,
It's the one with the lady that goes do 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 do.
No.
What? No.
no, that's Tom's Diner.
Yes.
Tom's Diner.
Which
Suzanne Vega.
Which I always get mixed up
Yeah.
with Alice's Restaurant because
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm
because
the only
Bree's dad's name is
You
Tom.
can get
So whenever I
you
try
want
to think of Alice's Restaurant, I think of
Restaurant.
Tom's.
So we all got together, we had ourselves a Thanksgiving dinner that could not be beat, and then we were forced, after all of our misdoings, to take this garbage and move it on out to this area where we had thrown it over a ledge and clean it up. So this goes into them getting processed and then them being like drafted for war, and then they're like talking about, I want to kill. They're like, you're our boy. But then they do the psych evaluation and see that they littered and go, oh, you're not fit to kill. And then he goes
All
off
of
on
this
the-
actually happens
Yeah.
in the song. This is not Bree hyperbolizing
and they do
as
that
she
in the
tends to.
longest, most drawn-out fucking way possible, in an unnecessary fashion. It makes Freddy Got Fingered look like a quick 2-minute romp.
Yeah.
In comparison, when you're sitting here listening to this, it's the same riff over and over again too.
Yeah,
But
it's
the
like a
song goes nowhere.
folky progression. So like you get 3-4 chords max.
And that's it for 10 fucking minutes.
Yeah.
So
And
it's more a song thing.
And the funniest thing is I feel like for me, because I feel like I only had 1 or 2 Thanksgivings with your family.
Yeah.
And the one time we were just at home for Thanksgiving, not really going out or doing anything special, we somehow got through the whole day without him playing Alice's Restaurant. And by the end of the day, everyone was like throwing their hands in the air, celebrating, like, we did it! We made it through a holiday without it!
Yeah. Caught him off guard. I will say every Thanksgiving we would and the one thing that I am kind of sad I miss out on, the one thing I miss from my hometown, we were very we were on name basis with the people who have been at the very same Indian restaurant that we would go to. We loved going there because they were always open on Thanksgiving. They're like, we don't fucking care. We don't celebrate this. And just amazing cuisine there. It was our favorite place, and they knew us, and it was really cozy. And they, my sister who lives in Nevada still drives out of state and goes to see them, but I can't be bothered. I'm far away, and I don't have the money, time, or car. So but it's one of those things that's I did like getting together to eat there. I miss that place.
My family was boring, and it was planes, trains, and automobiles, the quintessential holiday season movie to have on in the background.
I think it's kind of telling that food and music were the celebratory things in my life, just because that's
That makes sense for you.
yeah.
All right.
Love cooking, love music. Anyway.
So before we go into discussing the movie, I do want to bring up the one response I got to asking people to send in stuff on Blue Sky, which put it on the list, bsky.social. You could find us there, and you could find the podcast on anywhere you get major podcast platform, yada, 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 whatever. From Owen, not really a question, more of a comment, and I'm curious what people think about this. He says, I haven't done the work to check, but I'm pretty sure the Terminator timelines map 1-to-1 with the Zelda timeline.
I don't know enough about either to disprove that. He's probably right.
Anyways.
They matter about the same.
They both have a dark world, so it's all right.
So, Bridget, would you care to take us through a brief summation of Terminator Dark Fate, our movie of discussion this week?
Sure. Terminator Dark Fate is it's not a, I wouldn't say it's a reboot. It proposes itself as a sequel to Terminator 2, discounting all of the other Terminator movies and schlock they put out, like the third Terminator movie,
Terminator Salvation,
Terminator Genesis,
the Sarah Connor Chronicles, Terminator 2 3D, The Experience.
I mean, that might still be canon.
Terminator the Ride.
That is
that is
too
the
far.
ride.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it is a movie that straight up just opens up and is like, hey, fuck these kids. 2 children die in the future and in
Yeah, like, movie opens up with the usual, like, apocalyptic landscape that every Terminator movie, like, opens up with, where, like, you're seeing robots, like, stepping on skulls, and then there's just, like, some poor kid alone on the beach that the robots are, like, rising out of, and one of the Terminators just turns to it, just shoots the kid.
And did you say that was the tie to this movie?
yeah.
Yeah, between Freddy Got Fingered. Well, aside from the Castor Crew connection,
Yeah.
that was the thematic connection, was kids getting hurt.
Well, that's okay, because then that, like, snaps into, you know, like, the, like, oh, here's, like, the actual present here, where it's like, yeah, you got Sarah Connor, and you got her son, and they're just
Well, it's not
hanging
the
out in
present.
Mexico
It's
City.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, the past. In
It's-
Mexico City, it's Sarah Connor and her son.
It's shortly after the ending of Terminator 2.
Yeah.
Bridget,
So yeah, in this one, a what is it, a T-100
Yeah, T-800.
Yeah, basically the Arnold style original Terminator walks up to the, like, beach bar and just pumps John Connor with 2 full loads of shotgun.
we should briefly talk about how I suggested that we experience these movies, because Bridget treated it so much like
Whiskey's
it's
going nuts.
treated so much like this should be like the third movie in the Terminator trilogy. I, on a lark, said, how about we watch all through the mainline 3 Terminator films then? Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and then Dark Fate. And we did that. And the running joke that ended up coming about from watching Terminator 1 was us reaching the end and, like, Evie kind of offhand saying Kyle Reese's final message being, I hope 1 pump is enough.
Yeah, well, his final line.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, it's just because it's so funny to consider that they sent that guy back into the past to get Sarah Connor pregnant. And it's just like, that's put a lot of faith in that guy's dick game. That, like, that he would be able to successfully impregnate a woman. But yes, so that domino effect led to Terminator Dark Fate and us saying, like, I guess 1 pump wasn't enough. We had to use 2 to put down John Connor with a shotgun.
A child just...
But yeah, continue.
But yeah, he just basically walks up because I guess, you know, at that point, obviously Sarah is not going to be thinking a new Arnold showing up and...
Yeah, not as worried about Skynet, like, sending more Terminators from the future to kill her son, I guess.
Yeah, which I kind of want to briefly talk about that, because so before we had this recording, I watched the Half in the Bag review of Terminator Dark Fate, because I feel like that was going to generally summarize, like, a lot of the critiques that people had of that movie specifically, and also just general Terminator fatigue and the like. And what always ends up being such a strong complaint in there is like how convoluted like time travel shit has had to get over the course of the Terminator films in order to justify them continuing to exist. And here's the thing that I think a lot of people don't consider when they're doing critique of any time travel thing. Y'all, time travel in general is fucking stupid.
Oh, yes.
Like, the fact of the matter is, as soon as you start to think of like a time travel plot for more than 5 minutes, it breaks.
Yeah.
Because you run into time paradoxes, like, immediately.
Yeah, I mean, the movie kind of is smart about what it wants to show the viewer. Like, one of the later scenes is like, she's like, "What are you doing with my phone?" Future shit. That's it. You don't need huge explanations or like.
I did kind of love that. That's a phrase I'm going to use in the future.
No, yeah, that part is good, but that's kind of like talking past the thing. I'm just talking about like the plot
People
contrivances that
criticizing.
have to. Yeah, because one of the big complaints they had in this movie is like the idea that Skynet was sending back like multiple Terminators because the plot of this movie has to happen. And like, actually, once you consider it, it makes total sense that they would do that multiple times. Like, if this is like some fucking massive computer network that's trying to account for like all these different variations and being able to like kill one specific person and like the different ways these things can go wrong, yeah, they would send that thing. They would have a backup plan that isn't
you
just
wouldn't do
send
one
this
and
one
done.
robot.
Yeah.
So like it checks out, like, sure, like, because at the end of the day, the thing that should be the immediate thing that takes you out of it is the fact that once Skynet is destroyed, those Terminators should cease to exist. It goes back to what is one of my favorite new jokes, which is, or not new jokes, it's been a joke between our group for like the last year or so, which is going back in time to commit quantum suicide by sucking your own dad off.
Yeah.
Well, I made that I made that joke when we were watching the first Terminator that Arnold should have just sucked.
Once you start to conceptualize that in your head, you truly learn how stupid time travel is, because you would start to suck your own dad's dick.
Well, here's the thing. He's about to go in and you
Yes.
smack it out of his hands and grab it and just go.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that you would not be able to get him to reach climax in there, because you would start to phase out of existence as you get him closer to climax.
Which would be
so
like-
it never. So you never truly get there, and that is the like inherent like absurdity of the time travel story. It's why I think people need to stop worrying about like the machinations of people in the future in terms of how they respond to the shit that happened in the past, because at the end of the day, all of this is absurd. It's all about just distracting the person that is experiencing the story for long enough that they don't have the time to think about this shit.
Yes.
Like, that's what it needs to come down to.
To think about the fact that everything that will have happened has then already.
Yeah.
And then this wouldn't have been new, and this wouldn't have changed, because this is in one timeline already something that
Sure.
would have been an eventuality. It doesn't work.
Evie?
What if that was the plan from the beginning? Just like Skynet was just like, all we have to do is send a robot back to suck off Sarah Connor's boyfriend, so John Connor never gets created. And
My
then
head game is very good.
and then that's when they had to send Kyle Reese back to intercept Sarah before she has the boyfriend. And so like John Connor is like, Kyle, I need you to go back in time and fuck my mom.
I need to make sure
my
that I
God.
have different DNA in me, so I'm not the same. But yeah,
And
so
that's what Skynet's just like, fucking kill him.
Yeah.
This is stupid.
But yeah, so I wanted to just get that out of the way, like, first and foremost, is like the complaints about like time travel like machinations and the like is like, all this shit is stupid. Let's talk about this movie and how good it is at distracting you from the fact that the time travel shit is stupid.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I think is interesting is like the critique of Terminator fatigue. It's like that's something that makes sense at the time that the movie was released, and it's like, yeah, if you bothered watching all those other shitty Terminator things,
I feel like that's on you. You looked at Terminator Genesis and we're like, I'm gonna see that.
Yeah, 5 years after release, like, oh, whatever, I don't care. I never saw any of that other shit.
And it's so interesting to consider this movie in that context specifically, because I feel like, one, we live in an era of like franchises that have been going on for so long that like the new entries have to, for sake of like any kind of fan service, be constantly paying homage to the things that came before it. And that is a thing that people still complained about in this movie. But the fact of the matter is Terminator has always been doing this. Terminator 2 literally is calling back to Terminator 1. Like, when Arnold says, I'll be back, he did that shit in the first movie. When they do the, like, come with me if you want to live, that was in the first movie. Like, it was an inherent problem from the second they made a second Terminator movie. It's why I can respect people who like Terminator 1 but dislike the second one more than the people that like complain about all the other Terminators that came after the fact, because at that point you're just blinded by the fact that you loved Terminator 2 so much.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Bridget? It looked like you had a thing to chime in with.
I do always find it funny that the original "I'll be back" is in reference to me ramming this car into a police station.
It is really funny. I like it.
Yeah.
Through line through all three of these movies, do you want to see the most cop cars blown up?
Yes. Like,
we stand a movie with dead cops.
It is very nice that despite this Terminator Dark Fate not being directed by James Cameron, it does like hold strong to like the thing that he has talked about in the past of it's
co-written.
I know it's co-written, but still it's directed by a different person. It's directed by Tim Miller, the Deadpool guy. But like, I mostly just want to talk about like, despite being directed, you can still feel like kind of the low-key spite for those like structures of authority that James Cameron had back in Terminator 2. Like, yeah, fuck the cops, but also fuck ICE and fuck like mental hospital workers that like basically just exist to like brutalize people with mental illness.
God, the scene where they say, "Where are the prisoners?" and they go, "They're the detainees."
Yeah, the fact that they so I guess
fucking
let's first kind of explain why the movie ends up going to a like ICE like imprisonment camp, which is that like the first chunk of this movie takes place in Mexico. Like, it has a Mexican protagonist, and she is unknowingly to the audience throughout the majority of film, she is the new John Connor.
Yeah.
Now that John Connor is dead, shot down brutally at the beach.
R.I.P. CGI Edward Furlong, who is in this movie for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, she.
One second. I do want to say, like, I wish I had finished it, but I did like watch the first 20 minutes of the behind the scenes. And they were talking about when doing that, they have real actors, but like the faces are CG'd. And it was very funny because they were like, okay, we can do this for like a few short scenes, but this does not work. They cannot talk. It will not look realistic.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
So
even
if you notice, they aren't like... It's narration over. You never see them like actually.
That's true.
I mean, that makes sense. Like, even now, 5 years after that film, like, that kind of deep fake stuff still isn't really there. Like, even with how much AI shit has, like, kind of advanced over the years. Like, you see a not real person talking and you're still like,
Yeah.
that doesn't look right.
That valley is uncanny.
All three of those actors are, you know, using the same technology. The kid probably has it the worst because he's like the most noticeable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's probably why they don't have like any like actual scene leading up to him getting shot. They're like, we need to have this child dead in 5 seconds.
He's gotta die like as soon as possible.
You gotta
axe the kid.
My computer generated son, no!
But yeah, so the film takes place primarily in Mexico, and something that I really, really appreciated about this film is it has the decency to not apply the fucking Mexico filter to everything. Like, the shots of scenery and everything, like, it all looks clean in the same way as someone who has been to Mexico in person. It's a very pretty country.
It's really pretty.
Like,
it turns out that hues and colors exist outside of the United States border. I too was shocked. But
out of the United States and Europe.
Yeah,
those
and
are
it's disgusting how like films didn't. How hard it is to find that. In fact, so much so that when we were watching this, I kept forgetting it was in Mexico City because we've been watching so many LA-based movies that I had to keep being like, oh right, there's no like crappy air filter in this. This is Mexico City, right? Yeah, because like, yeah, like it's so refreshing and it's so rare that you really notice it.
Yeah, but it primarily takes place in Mexico, and at a certain point in the plot, they have to get to Texas. Yeah. So they literally have to cross the border in order to get there, and in the process, they get captured by ICE as part of the whole Terminator plot of the guy trying to kill them and everything, and thus they end up in an ICE facility. And it's so good to see, like, a Terminator movie, like, actually be about something.
Yeah.
Because
this
like,
film has things to say, as we like to say.
Like, you have like the implications of like that distrust of authority figures, like how cops are just kind of inherently bad in T2, but like and like general like technology anxiety in those first two movies, but by kind of letting those anxieties cook with like actual time in the ways that technology has really progressed over the years has allowed those things to actually bloom more into focus. Like, literally one of the first things that happens once we get to present time is Danny, the main character in the story, her and her brother are going to like their factory job, and literally there's fucking machine automation like trying to take her brother's job. Like, they're just going to fire the brother so they can use a machine to replace him.
And the boss was just like, hey, don't worry, it's just him, it's not you.
Yeah.
She's like, all of those
the boss
people
who's
out
a
there.
white guy in the...
Which, in and of itself, is also pointing to the ways that, you know, fucking US, like, companies will, like, outsource their, like, work out of the country to pay people less. And now they're just turning around and being like, well, what if we just completely cut out the middleman and just fucking fire all the workers and replace it with automated machines?
Yeah, everyone's basically warming the seats for a robot to take their job.
Yeah. So, like, you have factory automation, you have, like, there's light commentary about the surveillance state that we live in with, like... Sarah Connor having her cell phone in a fucking potato chip bag because the foil will protect her from being like monitored, when like the fact of the matter is like every camera that exists around the street can be accessed by the Terminators.
And then later on, you know, Carl,
prepper
bless
culture.
him.
Oh yeah.
He's like, oh, so yeah, you who put your phone in the potato chip.
Yeah, kind of like
It's like you
makes
could
fun
do
of
that
her.
if you want, but it doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
But like it also like kind of pokes fun at like prepper culture a little bit, because Carl also ends up being a prepper, which
Yep.
we could like get more into details on that later. But then also the idea, because the first two Terminator movies drill so much home the idea that like when the machines turn, they like start with like launching the nukes and everything. That's like operation number one is like we fire the nukes, self-assured destruction.
Yeah, launch the nukes.
But the fact of the matter is like this movie posits that like no, the first day everything just turns off.
Yeah.
Like that's actually the thing that is way scarier when it comes to the integration of like technology into society. Isn't so much that they like control the weapons, it's that they can control so many little nuances of all the shit that we
The
do in our
Internet of
day-to-day lives.
Things.
Yeah, the internet of shit.
Yeah.
Humanity is the one who launches the nukes. And in a way, I think like that's a change that I feel like it makes sense for them to make kind of like post Matrix in a way. It kind of like gestures to the idea that humanity is so scared of something that is like so scared of something like a AI that becomes sentient, like the one in this movie did, that they would just nuke it, and then everything just like goes fully to shit.
Yeah, everything
'cause
shuts
the
down.
AI
The
is
food
like,
runs
oh,
out
okay.
immediately. Like,
So like it's very cool that like this movie at the very least attempts to be about a thing that isn't simply cool robot from the future is trying to kill a person.
yeah.
Yeah,
This
Back to
time-
the ice
oh.
facility. We were talking about like just how it plays on like the whole issue with the ice facility. I'm saying we were trying to loop back to that and we never did.
I mean, I basically looped as much as I was going to.
Anyway, you
back
get to
into
see
that.
a guard there and several guards actually there
Well,
die, which is really cool. I really
Yes.
enjoyed that part. So
We can get more into details on that. Bridget, you are going to say a thing.
yes,
Well, no, Evie was.
But yeah, like I think attempted to be about something is like the way to put it, because I do think like at a certain like you could see where the compromises are made in terms of like getting this movie produced. I feel like, you know, for all the border patrol stuff that is in this is like as sharp as like a science fiction action movie in 2019 could be. I do think like it lets the military off the hook a little bit. I think, you know, you get this eventually like an Air Force colonel shows up and he's like kind of buddies with Sarah Connor, and then like they just get like a bunch of military like resources right after that, where he's just like, oh, you know, get on this plane and I can give you a fighter escort and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like y'all like there's like an argument to be made that on the fringes of empire, like, you know, Skynet is kind of here already and it's being employed by the United States military. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
and-
that's totally fair. Plus, I mean, going back to like the prepper culture thing, like the movie is kind of making fun, like poking fun at Arnold for like being a prepper, but also
it doesn't disagree with them.
Yeah, it
No,
doesn't
yeah.
disagree with them either. So like, I get what you mean, Bridget.
As lovely as this discussion has been, we have not talked about Grace once.
I mean, Grace is definitely like the best part of the movie. Grace, played by Mackenzie Davis, who is essentially the Kyle Reese role in this film. She is like a artificially enhanced human being who went back to the past in order to prevent the Rev 9 is the name of the...
Rev 9. The only other Terminator mentioned is Rev 7, and those are only in the future. They're like like basically Doc Ock or like Venom tentacle monsters.
Yeah, I think worth mentioning about this, like it comes up a couple of times in the story of the film, is that like in the events of Terminator 2, like it posits that like Skynet was stopped. Like that future didn't come to pass because of what they did there, but instead a different variation of, you know,
Skynet happens.
Yeah, like her from the future had never heard the term Skynet. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, Sarah Connor tells her, "You're welcome."
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Evie?
Yeah, and like because of that, it is like for a movie that says, you know, there's no fate but what we make. It is like a little like pessimistic on the ability of mankind to get out of this situation, which is like I feel like because this stuff with the Legion, which is like the new version of Skynet essentially, comes around, and also there's that line from Carl where he says like, even without this AI stuff, I think there's like a 75% chance that like it all falls apart eventually. Like I think it like the movie is like kind of fatalistic at its core in a way, which is like, I don't know, it's hard to.
It's complicated.
I really don't know if I agree with that, because for me personally, I view it less as like a pessimism or fatalism as much as I view it as like a cynicism specifically, because it's part of why I think this movie works so well as like a sequel to T2 that's like 30 years after the fact, because like it's essentially leaning into that idea of like those technological like anxieties that you had, although it's not as hyperbolically true as like the machines have all risen up and they're all walking skeletons that are going to shoot you and your family dead.
Not Rise of the Robots, but
it is still very much going into that idea of like just how deeply ingrained in our like society and structures it has become as ingrained as like those original movies like kind of fear. And I guess part of the reason I don't view it so much as fatalistic or pessimistic is, I mean, maybe it is a little bit of like that, but when we consider again like the collapse of empire and stuff like that, like how those things will always just naturally happen because of entropy. Yeah. Like for my worldview at the very least, I view that as less like that line specifically that you cited, Evie, of like the 75% chance of it all collapsing is less for me like a fatalistic and more of like very much a machine logic like realism. Like, no, these things will collapse in one way or another. It's why also kind of going back to the critique of like time travel stuff where like, oh, Skynet gets ended, but then it still basically ends up happening. It's why I've always found that to be kind of a bullshit complaint. Not to phrase it too harshly, but a bullshit critique of these kinds of stories, because like, no, yeah, technology will always continue to advance. Like that has been true in human society ad nauseum. Like regardless of how much empires and the like fall apart, and the like our technology and the tools that we have to work with will continue to grow until humanity literally blows itself up or the sun dies out. Like that's just going to happen.
Yeah, and we can move on after this thought. But like I think the thing that really like when I say that like at its core, it's kind of like, you know, fatalistic or like doesn't like or maybe just doesn't necessarily like meet the worldview it's kind of putting forward, is that like acknowledging that technology will kind of get there regardless because of like the way that we structure our society. That's ultimately like a big like it is looking at the structures of the thing, but like our protagonists, like the viewpoint characters in each of these movies, like it always comes back to, you know, they got to get in their Jeeps at the end and drive off into the sunset and like be lone wolves until the next time a movie happens.
Which when we get later in this podcast, I need to talk about the last scene, but remind me.
but like it's the Terminator is a big structural problem, and it's like putting individuals in, like centering individuals as the solution to it, you know, because like you got the one, like because like you got Danny is the new John Connor, and then like
it's Danny, the gay Jesus.
I don't necessarily expect Terminator to imagine a better future, but like it keeps serving up a horrible future and not really a adequate solution for the present, because it happens over and over again.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that I could see the fatalistic approach of just recognizing how these structures are cyclical.
Sure. I think I'm able to read it a little bit more hopefully. Like, I definitely can see what you're talking about in idea of like individual versus the structure, how that's such like an American ideological idea that is, let's say, had debilitating effects in a political sense on the culture that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least in the context of the film, I think part of what helps me view it a little bit more positively is like the note that the film ends on. So to jump ahead before even discussing Grace, kind of talking about the end of the movie,
or really Danny or Sarah Connor.
Basically, the person that goes back into the past saves the person from the past because they are the one who like kind of saved them in that future that they live in, not because they're the John Connor or something like that, but simply because like this person helped me. So it's a very like personal thing as opposed to like a big picture.
Yeah. Also, they are the John Connor though.
Yeah, they are still the John Connor, but the motivation is more personal than that. The person that was sent back from the future dies in the past, and Danny is inspired to, at the end of the film, try and even prevent that future from happening. And for me, that is the note that helps me not view it as pessimistically as I probably could. You look at something like Terminator 3, where that movie literally just ends with the nukes coming down. Like that is the truest like dark ending of a Terminator movie. It's just like, no, you're just fucked.
That's
like
the darker fate, yeah.
But this movie is like literally ends with like Danny turning to Sarah Connor and saying like, I'm not going to let her like sacrifice herself again for me. So literally it's kind of them driving into the sunset with the implication more or less being like, we are going to stop Legion from happening in the same way. Car horns going off in the background. We're going to stop Legion from ever happening in the same way that Sarah Connor and John Connor in the past stopped Skynet from ever happening. Mm-hmm. So like that for me, especially in that treating this movie like a trilogy, kind of helps it end on a less pessimistic note. Like, it's cynical in that it thinks these things are always going to happen in some way or another, but at the very least it's trying to keep it from getting there.
And I have to say, while we're on that, the ending there where they're saying like, I'm not going to let anything happen to her, and then like, you know, Sarah Connor says, well then you're going to need to be ready, and then as they drive off in the Jeep, they almost fucking ram her, like walking out of the park that they're looking at her in, you know, when she's younger. They almost fucking hit her. And then it's just like, what the fuck? What if this ended with like, we need to be careful? Shit.
Okay, but now,
all
Bridget, you now have the floor to gush about your incredibly gay crush on Mackenzie Davies in this movie.
I mean, I think
which
we
is
could all say
understandable,
mommy,
because she is quite attractive.
Yeah, she's amazing in this movie.
Go ahead, Bridget. You have the floor.
I mean, she's just great. What the thing we didn't even mention is like, so when she first appears, besides falling on every like metal beam on the bridge.
Tunk, tunk, tunk.
Yeah, they didn't calculate for the bridge. Like, she was a pachinko machine going down. Like, it's... Oof.
She just instantly, like beats up a bunch of cops.
It's great.
Sexy, short haircut woman beats up cops and drives off, and it's like, oh, my heart.
Yeah. Plus, like, the general, like, makeup design on, like, the very light cybernetic, like, markings on her. Because for the majority of the movie, she's like wearing a fucking tank top, and you get to see like her arms in full effect. And there's like these little areas on here that are like slightly outlined,
Little dots and lines that suggest
she's
that
got,
there's,
like,
skin
seams.
polymers. Yeah.
It fucking rules.
Yeah.
Like, she is definitely like one of the best like character designs, effectively, of a Terminator movie.
Decimate my face, cyborg mommy.
Like some of the parts where like quite literally, you know, she's being like a rod is thrown at her and she just uses her arm to like
Deflect
it
it.
scrapes her, it hurts her, but she still is like deflecting.
Yeah, so you have like your typical like Terminator first act where like, you know, good person sent from the future, bad person sent from the future. Bad person almost gets to the target first. Good
And then
person gets
like the amount of pumps on that shotgun just like
it's pretty
on the
good.
first like
I'll say it's very interesting how watching these three movies in sequence and seeing the way that the action scenes like escalate in different ways between each of them, because Terminator 1 basically is like there's not too much in the way of action happening in the first Terminator, and then it ends with like the big truck scene before the factory thing, and then you go to Terminator 2 and you have that big truck chase in the beginning, and then it's like bookended by another truck chase at the end. And then you start Terminator 3 Dark Fate, as I'll call it here, with big ass trucks chase in the beginning, and then a plane chase, a mid-air plane chase towards the end of the film. Like, it's nice how, I don't know, for me personally, the escalation there like was a fun through line in my eyes.
It's actually like one of the things in the behind the scenes said, it's like, yeah, we use a lot of CG, but if we can, they try to be practical when they can. Like the opening scene where he's like, you know, fighting her and she has like a car door as a shield. She's actually holding that. She's actually being hit by like, not those CG like things, but he has a pole effectively and is like hitting her and she's doing that work.
That is it like sped up at all versus like the like shooting of it? Because that was kind of gonna be one of my few like little nitpicky complaints about the film. Is Terminator 1 and 2 are they're a lot more methodical in their action scenes in the way that like older action movies and maybe like martial art films tend to be. Whereas like this one feels like the action is like very fast-paced, very loud.
Yeah.
And
it's
like,
very good for that. It pulls that off very well.
I think it's good. In my core, though, I like that shit that's just that older kind of action.
I mean, that just might be the case with like Tim Miller. in how he like directs action as opposed to like James Cameron.
I think it's more of a modern action movie problem than specifically
Sure.
Tim Miller.
But I do have to say, having just, all of us watched 1 and 2, I do like to see a new direction style done to that property, to see like a new imagining of it.
Sure.
And I like seeing it because we've already seen 1 and 2. I don't want to see 1 and 2 again.
Yeah, like I said, these are nitpicks. Like, ultimately, the action is still fun. Like, the fucking end fight with, like, Mackenzie Davies, like, swinging the chain with a hook on it so fast,
good.
it's, like, making air propeller noises. Like, it's ridiculous and stupid, but it is pretty fun. I cannot deny that.
Also important in that opening scene is he does the silly Terminator walk. Like the totally uncool looking weird like forward running thing that the T2 also does.
Yes. How do y'all feel about the design of the Rev 9? Because for me, as I've kind of brought up before, it's impossible to talk about this movie without talking about like Terminator fatigue. And another big complaint has always been how they have to like continually complicate, like they have to ramp up the kinds of Terminators sent from the past. I like the Rev 9. I think it works as like a logical progression.
Yeah, it looks like kind of a modern like carbon fiber aerodynamic thing that you would see from like a tech bro building something now. It has that kind of modern sort of like,
Well, I don't even mean just that. I mean specifically the way that they combine like the skeleton and the liquid Terminator together.
It's effectively T1 and T2 together as a unit that can split apart.
Which, like, yeah, if you think about it, that makes sense. Like, if you have these two pieces, why wouldn't you just be combining it and have this like hyper assassin that you could send back into the past?
Skeleton and the liquid form can operate on their own.
Yeah,
and
they can do
really
independent like literally pincer moves and
but I'm saying, like, I think for me too, though, I just the actual like design of this thing, from its skeletal form particularly, I like that it looks like a more modern thing that you would see now, that it kind of graduates up with that into looking like a more simple, basic, shitty thing that we look at now and go, tech.
Like, it's still kind of the same as those original, like, skeletons, but there's just, like, small tweaks that they've done. Like,
it's black carbon fiber, it's more rounded,
The way it weirdly has, like, the back of its skull is just, like, there's nothing there.
Yeah, it's like, we don't need to make the full skull. You can just reduce
I feel like it's more reminiscent of a lot of the, like, robotics that they do now. Like, I feel like it does kind of have a nod to, like, what you expect to see in that now, and that for me at least was how it resonated.
Sure,
I thought that was neat.
I don't disagree with you on that.
Yeah,
it looks kind of like a Boston Dynamics.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so you have like the first act, like big chase scene. It feels like our heroes are stuck. Like they're trapped in the
her
pincer
brother
maneuver.
Dies in a fiery explosion.
Fiery car crash. And then suddenly Sarah Connor pulls up in a shitty like pickup truck and starts firing like a rocket launcher at the Terminator skeleton, and she just casually says, "I'll be back." Which I'll say, I don't feel bad about them calling back to the line. The way she delivers it, though, is just so kind of... It doesn't even feel like she had the heart behind it when she said it that lackadaisically. Like, the delivery feels weird to me.
Oh, for sure.
That's my nitpick on that line.
I mean, Sarah's character in this is all about being tired, like, just... She, at this point in her life, she's been through obviously the trauma of John being killed, and her just like at this point she has theoretically killed quite a number of Terminators.
Yeah, she just became a Terminator hunter.
Yeah. She literally calls herself that at a certain point. I'll say, watching the Half in the Bag review, I don't know how much the consensus on in general with reviews of this movie was aligned with this. One of their biggest, they felt like the biggest like knock against this movie were Sarah Connor and the Arnie Terminator. For me, to be quite honest, those two are kind of my favorite part of the movie.
They're amazing.
Like,
I would not have done this without them.
Aside from Grace, like I feel like those two actually have like really good and fascinating character arcs to them. How do y'all feel about that?
I love the detail of Carl's draperies. I love that T100 one, or whatever the fuck they're called. I love that hold on a minute.
Oh.
I love that his whole like side thing is that like he like learned to be more human after all that happened and like Skynet was taken down and everything. Where he like went on to just like find a family and look after her kid and like realize he was, you know, he became more human and saw the ill of his ways and like grew and developed. And that was beautiful. But like part of that was he started a business called Carl's Draperies, and there's
they never leave you hanging.
Yeah, there's an entire fucking like side bit while they're prepping for the end fight where he's just like, so yeah, you know, that with doing drapery, it's about the texture, the weight of the material. He wanted to have solid colored drapes at a girl's bedroom. I said, don't do it. You need butterflies, balloons. You know, a solid colored drapes can completely destroy a room. And it's just like little flavor text in the middle of them before they're like setting this up. And I'm just like, I love how this movie knows when it's being cheesy and just leans in, but it's still so badass and so like full of action and so fun.
I have things to say in response to that. Bridget, what were you going to say first, though?
Brie already said it.
Oh, okay. But, like, the thing that actually makes him interesting is, like, he doesn't necessarily... I don't know that I would say he feels remorse, because the thing that actually makes him so fascinating to me is that there is still, like, such that strong alien element of, like, no, at the end of the day, this dude is still a fucking robot. There can never fully be that connection between the emotional reality that human beings live and what he sees and analyzes it as. Like, he learns and grows in the way that it feels like a machine would, and in a way, because of that, it's like, despite them being two different Terminators, it feels like actually a natural progression of like that Terminator character in a way, because like if you look at it as a character, like a full character arc of the Terminator as a concept, the Arnie Terminator as a concept from 1 to 2 to 3, you have like him as just like the mindless killer in the beginning, like just killing everyone in his way. And then you have like the second movie where like he kind of learns to stop doing that. And then you finally have like the third movie where it's like he has had time to like cook and grow in such a way of like, at the very least, like exercising that care, what would be care and compassion from a normal human being for the people around him. Like, it's really fucking interesting, like seeing these movies in sequence with that in mind. Like, despite being different characters, like it is like, you should view the Arnie Terminator less as like a character, an individual character in each one, and more as like an archetype that is growing and evolving over the course of the trilogy.
For better or for worse?
Mostly for better, I would still say at the end of the day. Like, the fact that like he's able to grow that relationship with the woman that he helps out, that is an asexual like relationship. Like, the two of them are basically married. He basically helped raise like her kid. And like he's like, I don't have sex with her or anything. Like, she hasn't found out about me being a robot because we haven't fucked or anything like that.
9S wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
She likes that I'm reliable, that I'm a good listener, that I change diapers without complaining, and that I'm funny. Like, that sells their entire, like, that he could have a relationship with a woman, like, and she not know that he's a robot.
And I think this is like one of those fun elements where one of the few times I feel like the the queer nature of our podcast like actually really comes into account in analyzing this film, because like, no, yeah, that is like a separate, like almost queer kind of love where it's like, no, I don't need to fuck you or to like be your parent or sibling or like even necessarily like just a friend or something like that to take care of another person. There is like there is a bond beyond simple like sexuality or like obligation.
It's so straight coded, you know? Like,
well, no, it's.
Well, I'm saying like that everything needs to be about like.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
sex.
Yeah, he straight up says that like her son is his son. Like he claims like it as his boy.
And he takes it as far as, you know, I mean, spoilers, but he takes it as far as to like sacrifice himself to make up for like, you know, killing her son. Like just going like, I'm going to get rid of this threat and like stand in here and like give my all to make up for that. Like that's
like, again, that's
so cool.
Oh man, like the fact that like he has that connection and like it's revealed he is the one that's been telling Sarah Connor about like all the Terminators going to the past, and he's ending every message with like coordinates he sends to her with for John.
Yeah,
like
as at least his brain like coming to terms with like, maybe this'll make it up, and obviously she responds to that by shooting him. But
yeah, like, which for me lends credence to that idea of like, he's still not all the way there. There's still that like alien like disconnect between the AI and the humans. Like he's trying, but there's going to be that kind of disconnect in there. Like, I don't know. That's the main thing that really made me like kind of love this movie, and why the film falls off a little bit for me in the third act. Like for me, the strongest part of that film is when they are just hanging out at Arnie's house and like talking shit out. That's like that is legitimately my favorite part of that film, is that section.
To see that in an action movie is like, so it's refreshing.
Well, it's
to have that much flavor text going on with like the interpersonal, like, you know, resolving of these things is just,
it's a thing that I think a lot of people miss about those first two Terminator movies is like, they get so focused on like the set pieces that have become iconic for those films that they fucking forget. Like, no, a lot of those movies, it's slow character shit. Like it's just people sitting in a room talking with each other.
Yeah.
Like a really fun part of, like, arguably for me, the best part of Terminator 2 is like the section where like John Connor is trying to teach Arnie how to be more human. Like the section where he's trying to teach him how to smile, and he slowly does the most inhuman grin imaginable.
I too have autism.
His smile there is like equivalent to like when a dog does it, and it's like
That's a really good way of putting it, Bridget. Yeah. But yeah, and it's because of those small moments that you end up fucking caring about the action set pieces that happen, why those things have any kind of weight to them when they end up occurring, is because it takes its time to give you those character moments.
And for me, I think that makes like the final like scene of the whole thing, that final act of it, like really hold together, is because it had that character building in the middle.
It kind of loses me a little bit with,
it doesn't
like,
for me,
with,
I'll say.
Well, not the entire thing. Specifically the section where they're like floating around in the back of the like cargo jet with like the Humvee parachuting out of the back of it and everything. Like, it's dumb fun.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad necessarily. I'm just saying that's the part where like my brain like kind of turns off for a second.
That part lost me for a little bit because it's just like it
That
was
one
so hard.
scene. Yeah,
I couldn't keep track of who was where during the cargo plane part, and like all the CGI didn't look good enough for it to make up for it.
Like the biggest complaint that I have about this movie, aside from that small chunk, is like the part that also like immediately precedes it, where like the movie gets too ham-fisted with trying to drive home, like, take back the no fate but what you make message. Like, when they're kind of finally revealing in dialogue with Grace, like, the reason why she came back to the past and everything like that. Like, more than any, like, fan service, like, winking at the camera throughout the rest of the film, it's the part that feels most like the creative team is, like, looking at the camera and saying, hey, we know that the last 2 decades of this franchise have been, like, viewed as a joke that's fully misunderstood with what made, like, the original films good, but trust us, we get it. We get that it's no fate but what you make. Like, and it feels so much like, no, calm down. I get it. I know no fate but what you make. I literally just watched those first 2 movies. I get it, man. And then to have that, like, kind of ham-fisted slapping of the idea against my lenses to go into that, like, that action sequence is like, okay, it's kind of losing me here a little bit. And then they actually, like, get onto the dam proper. Everyone gets together, and it pulls itself back together a bit more for me.
I can going back to the stuff about the half in the bag, whatever. Like, I can see how someone can someone can get to that opinion of, like, Arnold and Linda Hamilton being, like, kind of the weak points of the movie. Like, there were some line reads from Linda that I didn't like, that while we were watching it, like, that kind of, like, clunked. But I ultimately agree. Like, I think they're both really good in this movie, and Arnold kind of has the better of it because he just has to play a machine who is just like who's just like kind of deadpan funny sometimes.
Well, Sarah is like just this
who is just
old,
like pissed.
bitter, like, literally says she just drinks herself to sleep at this point.
I'm a badass. You and I are not the same. I drink myself to sleep.
Like, I agree with you, Evie. I think that's, like, the thing that most criticism of this movie is, like, missing when they're like talking about, like, being tired of seeing Sarah Connor there. It's like, no, Linda Hamilton, bless your heart, you are a good actress in Terminator 2. Those line reads in Dark Fate, like, they are definitely, like, pretty stiff at times, where it's like, you could have done better on that.
I guess.
I'm not saying it's awful. I'm just saying that
She's still one of the best parts of the movie, but I guess when you compare it to those other films in that particular way that she tends to deliver lines, it is a little bit stiffer. Like,
yeah, like, especially coming right off of T2.
Yeah.
Where, like, you have that, like, the whole arc of her in, like, the mental hospital, both, like, in the interactions with the staff there.
Those are so good.
I mean, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
We can talk about Terminator 2 another day. I can talk about that for as long as this.
We cannot go down that road now.
But like, specifically, like, that arc of the movie and, like, that reaction when she, like, first sees Arnie again, like, the way she's, like, flipping out over there, like, it's hard to compare.
It is.
Those things. And it's another thing for me about, and I don't know if other people have more to say about the film aside from final thoughts, but for me, like, what my final thought is like, even though this movie isn't the best Terminator film, it's impressive how much it gets right about what makes those films good. And, like, the biggest knock that anyone could really float against this movie is that it is not as good as Terminator 2, which is literally one of the greatest action movies of all time. it was never going to win that fight. Like, you gotta just take that shit out of your mind.
Yeah, it at least feels like it has good ideas about the franchise, which is like
lesbians and
fuck
lesbians
ice and
fuck ice.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, it has like a thought about what it could be, which is more than you can say about any other Terminator thing past two.
Remember when the Terminator gets covered in ice agents and just starts killing them like a fucking exploding porcupine?
Oh yeah, just like reverse pincushion, like I am a ball of pins and I am spearing everything in my way.
That part's pretty good.
I love it.
Like,
it's cool.
That's real good. Love to see pieces of shit get murdered in beautiful ways.
The commentary again that I loved in that area is like, I mean, unlike a crappy Marvel film, you do get to see authority figures get killed, and that's beautiful. And
Yes.
and especially Ice, listen, they deserve it. And just like, but that one fucking thing, I mentioned that line earlier, the whole like, where are you keeping the prisoners? And then they use that term, like they're the
detainees.
Yeah, those are the detainees. It touches for that little minute on like the little legalese and the wordplay people use to just brush off the evils they're committing for the people they work for.
Yeah.
Like, you are a monster, and you have these things that are just like, no, these are just the technical things for like, we're not monsters, they're detainees. Like, that hits so close to home with not just that area, but like every corporate little ladder of just like lying to yourself with phrases and like the wordplay with how you excuse the worst things that people do in humanity in places of power. And I love that. I love the goofy bits. Again, like the drapery bit where he's talking about his business. I love that this movie is not afraid to go, yeah, we know where we're being like, you know, kind of cheesy and like, not cheesy, what's the word? We know where we're being kind of silly, and they lean into it. It's kind of funny, and it's also still very gripping and intense. I feel like it has its cake and eats it pretty well.
Like, that's the thing I feel like it gets about the other thing that it gets about the original Terminator movies that kind of got lost, like, and you immediately see it in like the original Terminator 3 where like they introduce Arnie and he's like going to like a gay bar to get his outfit, and it's like this big like wink wink joke, like like the way he looks now is like a symbol of like but like biker like leather daddies.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of like leather daddy culture. And instead it's like, no, let's make Arnie a serious character up front, and then as we get into it, he becomes like, it lightens it up a little bit and helps you humanize the character over time.
One thing that like that it kind of stands like in contrast to is like, I saw that last like Jurassic Park movie in theaters where they brought back, you know, Laura Dern, Sam Neill, and Jeff Goldblum, and they were like just playing those characters again, right? And it was so cute about it, and it was so painful to sit through because like in a way that Linda Hamilton's performance and Arnold's performance in this like wasn't, because like I feel like though their characters are like, they're getting something to do as actors in this movie, and I think that's like, and I think they do well, like, and I think that's to this movie's credit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I didn't even talk about it at all, but it is also just fascinating with Arnie's character, like to consider that idea of like what is essentially like a sleeper cell agent who no longer like has the mission to dedicate themselves to like,
mission's over.
Yeah,
he
it's
just
like,
becomes my uncle, it turns out.
yeah, it's like like it's literally the thing that you've joked about before. Like, do you think there's people whose like sleeper cell agent thing was to assassinate JFK?
No,
who,
yeah,
like get activated.
We were just talking earlier. I don't know if this is going to go in the episode, but some early banter we were talking about like that, like the artistry in the Christmas Carol of Mr. Magoo. If that activated someone, considering the time that came out, they were probably like, you know, kill this political figure, and they're already dead, and they're just like, what do you do? Do you stay permanently activated, or do you just go, oh well, fuck, what do I, shit, you know? And then you just gotta keep going.
And then you can kind of like draw the parallels in like Arnie's like whole character arc there between that idea of like almost becoming complacent with like whatever fate you have or something like that. It's like, well, I did this thing. I guess all I have to do is just sit here and allow whatever is going to happen. And it's like, wait, you forgot the fucking golden rule. You forgot the no fate but what you make. It's not simply that you do one action and that's it. It is a continuous line of things that you do. It is always in the present that you are living and acting accordingly to. I think this is a better movie than Terminator 1, at the very least, personally.
Yeah. I agree.
I've never been big on Terminator 1, but I think I like this movie more than Terminator 1.
Sure. And I do enjoy Terminator 1, don't get me wrong.
I don't think I agree, but I do think this movie is good.
Bree, final thoughts?
I basically gave mine earlier. That whole cloud of text is just like, yeah, no, everything about this is really great. I think it knows when it's being goofy and it allows itself to, and that gives more like levity and more, even sometimes some weight to the very human and the very decisive actions that it takes with the characters. Makes you fucking care, you know?
Actually, I'm realizing I'm jumping too quick to final thoughts. This has been Bridget's movie, and I feel like she's barely gotten a word in this whole time.
Sorry.
Bridget, do you have like more to expound upon, like specific moments that you want to talk about in this movie?
I mean, I obviously like Grace. I do like Sarah Connor's character. Like through most of the film, she is just very bitter. Like literally locks out Danny out of the room. She's like, the adults are talking.
Mommy and Daddy need to have a conversation.
Like, she's so tired. She's so exhausted from everything that she's been through up to this point.
She's spending all of her time killing Terminators. Like, of course she's... like, that's the thing. The implication is, like, for the last 25 years, she's been living out Terminator 1 for, like, the every day or, like, every year. Which is insane to consider.
Well, and also, remember, she's, like... quite literally one of the most wanted people because she has
her own episode of America's Most Wanted, as she says.
That's right.
On the list for blowing up Skynet.
Wanted in only 50 states.
Yeah.
Not every single US state. There's at least like one or two in there that she's not wanted in.
Which ones do you think are the ones she's not?
Evie, you said Montana. Are you still sticking with that as your answer?
Wait, are we supposing that the implication there is that there are more than 50 states?
Isn't it 51 states in the U.S.?
There are just 50 states.
There are 50 states and two other. There are like a couple.
Yeah, there's
other,
a couple. There's a handful of territories.
Territories.
Okay. Maybe that's what I'm getting confused on. Okay, never mind. This is a J Dumb moment. Bing!
I think she's wanted in North Wisconsin.
Anyways, Bridget,
South Idaho.
Do you have final thoughts on this film?
I will say, although honestly, she doesn't really have that much to. She really doesn't like do too much, but I do like certain aspects of Danny. I do love that when she gets really angry, she's not speaking English. If she's like, you know, the having to present as English wipes off, and you know,
I love that in a character because that's so real. Like you code switch so hard when you're just like fed up. Like it's a real thing.
Totally.
I like the parts where we see the bits of Danny that like that are supposed to sell her as like the sort of organizer and like kind of person who like gets humanity back on their feet, so to speak. Like her insistence that they don't just like run forever and like just like start fighting against the Terminator, even if it means that like it even though it's like dangerous for her.
The moment in the pharmacy where they're like trying to steal all that shit for Grace, but Grace is still like in the middle of passing out.
We should know.
to...
So like the ways Grace's like super like enhancements work is basically she can do things in short bursts and that like burns out.
Sudden metabolism of like needs to take out a Terminator quick or she will burn out and die. Yeah,
so she needs like a regular drug cocktail in order to keep her going.
Exactly. So at a certain point, they try to rob a pharmacy. However, she is in the middle of her crash out. So Danny, like, literally, like, starts trying to, like, pick her up and is, like, grabbing the gun, like, taking charge of the situation, like... fucking fine, I'll handle this shit. Like, trying to at the very least finish the job that was started by the person. Yeah, that she doesn't get a lot to work with, relatively speaking, to everyone else in the movie, but the touches in there are good for that character.
Something occurred to me. I think if I have one teeny tiny gripe, it's that like where you see what's the name of the other girl?
Grace?
Yeah, one where you see Grace getting saved by Danny, like in the future. The way that happens, where she like steps up to the people who are going to like, you know, rob her and kill her for food or whatever, and she's just like, "Are you sure you want to do that? Why don't we like actually fight back and stop killing each other? That's what they want." Is that really all it took to make three thugs who are killing for what they need to go?
It's like,
yeah,
damn,
you
you're
know
right.
What? Yeah, okay, I changed my mind.
Well,
What?
I mean,
come on a minute now.
The key detail you're skipping over there is like they hear like a fucking like drone or something like that passing overhead.
If he shoots the gun, it'll
find them.
It's going to find them and kill them immediately. Like there's context in that scene that explains that thing. Like, yes, it is definitely a plot convenience.
Yeah, on its face it just felt so, oh, you know, I never thought of that. Okay. You know, but yeah.
Terminator, The West Wing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this was a great movie.
I was
really
meant
good
to
pick,
lead, not to read.
That's a different movie.
Bridget, any more final thoughts about this film?
I think that's a good bit. I really enjoyed this movie. Obviously, I picked it. It was one of those things like when I first saw this movie, I was like, wow, this is really good. And then seeing the online reviews and like the box office, it was just confusing. I was like, oh, this is like a huge bomb.
Yeah, I mean, is
this
never
the
read the
biggest
comments on a
bomb
thing that
we've
you
watched on? Oh wait, no, we watched Doctor.
Yeah,
this still might be a bigger bomb in terms of like actual money lost.
Well, yeah, in terms of like expectations, it was probably a bigger disappointment than Moreau.
Strangelove.
Well, to speak on that, like
Doctor whatever.
The issue, it points to the larger structural issue that like AAA Hollywood is stuck in at the moment, which is that like they keep trying to rely on things that they think are sure bets, and it's just like, not only is that like creative cowardice and the like, but also when you continue to stack up enough bad faith as like as a concept that exists in reality is like a debuff that can in fact stack on a franchise over time. And Terminator has basically had that over the course of the last 15 years before Dark Fate premiered. Like you had T3, nope, bad movie. Terminator Salvation,
Terminator Dark Faith.
Terminator Genesis, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Like, it just kept stacking and stacking. And this is finally the one where, like, they actually made a good one. And unfortunately, all of the stack debuffs took the movie that would have been, like, a solid B. Like, maybe a B+, and it's like,
I would give this
parts.
a solid 4 out of 5, personally.
Like a solid B, and like in the public perception brought it down, debuffed it to like a D, more or less.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, it's a bummer.
It is. But we recommend it.
Yeah.
It's a good film.
Evie, final thoughts?
Yes. I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed watching it. I especially enjoyed like kind of having it as sort of like a miniature unit where we cover like
The Terminator unit.
Yeah, the Terminator unit. Even if they never like kind of follow up on Dark Fate, I think it's an interesting capper to those three films. And I think an interesting thing about I really like that in the beginning of this movie, like the beginning of this movie is interesting as like an epilogue to Terminator 2, which I was listening to a podcast recently and it put this idea in my head and I'm interested in it, where there's a cohort of movies over the course of the 90s between the end of the Soviet Union and like 9/11 that represent sort of this sort of someone sitting around and being like, man, I wish that something would happen.
The end of history.
I'm worried that something big will happen. Yes, the end of history. And Terminator 2 is kind of part of this cohort, but it is somewhat too optimistic in terms of like feeling that like humanity can like handle it, and that's why the intro to Dark Fate is interesting, because it's just like you thought history was over, history's still happening. And so I really waffling between two different films for my pick, because like the one that I came in here wanting to do is as Terminator Dark Fate had 5 writers. One of them was David S. Goyer, who also wrote the film Blade, which was going to be my pick. But now that I'm talking about all this end of history shit, like just like should we jack in or should we Blade?
Jack in. Do you mean the Matrix?
To the Matrix. The Matrix, yes. I don't even know if it really connects, but surely it connects. Surely someone who worked on Terminator Dark Fate worked on The Matrix.
Wait, hold on. I can pull up IMDb here. One sec.
I might be calling an audible here. I'm not sure.
Let's see. 2 titles: Terminator Dark Fate, The Matrix. Oh yeah,
yes,
there are connections.
That's a yes. Okay, cool.
So let me put this up to the rest of the podcast here.
I really want to talk about the Matrix.
Here's my one problem. I think much like with the Blank Check episode where they tried talking about it, The Matrix as a film sits so colossal on the rest of like cinema history for the following like 25 years that it feels like a Herculean task to try and talk about it.
How do you even talk about The Matrix? Because it's just so... It's everything.
It's the fucking Matrix. Like, it's why I'm kind of glad that Terminator Dark Fate was the first Terminator movie we discussed, as opposed to Judgment Day.
Sure.
Because it's just like, no, that's like the 90s action movie before everything
And then we'll
else.
just talk about Judgment Clay.
No, we won't.
No.
Nope.
Personally, I think I would go with Blade, if only because I haven't seen that movie before. That's how I
I've
feel.
also never seen Blade.
I haven't either.
Okay, none of us have seen Blade. All right, we're doing Blade.
Fuck, Blade it is.
Yay! Wesley Snipes in Blade. What's the connection? It was David Goyer, you said?
David Goyer's the writer on Blade. He's also one of the 5 writers on Terminator Dark Fate. Junkie XL did music for both of these movies.
One second. That's something we didn't even get into, is the idea this movie came out okay with 5 fucking writers.
You can kind of feel
including James Cameron.
Sometimes too many cooks, you know?
You can kind of feel it a little bit in what Evie was talking about, in that like it attempts to do a lot of things, but the fact that like it doesn't rip apart at the seams is impressive.
It is really impressive.
You were talking about Junkies XL, sorry.
Oh yeah, Junkie XL did music for both Blade and Terminator Dark Fate. There were stunt workers that were in both. A ton of people worked on both of these films.
I can't wait to find out how motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill next time.
I'm very excited. I've been itching to watch this movie.
Hell yeah. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. Bree, where can they find you on the internet?
Oh, you can find me over on at Asnesbo, ASNESBO. Over on Blue Sky, you can find all of my artwork and all of my streams from Easy Breezy. That's EAZYBREEZY TV. At Twitch. Over on Twitch, you can find me there VTubing playing the video games. I'm pretty fun. I make a lot of funny stuff with the video games. We have fun there. But yeah, those are primarily the places you'll find me, and that links to everything else.
Okay. You can go pee now.
Oh, cool.
Evie, where can they find you?
Don't worry about it.
Bridget, where can they find you?
Evie's ethereal. Sometimes she comes in on one of my streams, which you can watch at Sasquatchless Twitch at Twitch.
Twitch.tv/Sasquatchulous.
So yeah, if you're like, fuck, I need more Evie, come to my streams, because sometimes she's there. A lot of the time.
You can also sometimes find her when Bree and I stream over at twitch.tv/wifecity on occasion there. You can find the podcast on Put On The List.
Also on Blue Sky.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to talk about next is Put It On The List.bsky.social. I have my own Blue Sky account as well. I'm not going to tell you what it is. If you can find it, good job. I post jokes on my account. Try to find it if you can, fucker.
I got the help of Rev9 to help me find your Blue Sky.
You can find us on Wife City Productions on YouTube. You can find the podcast anywhere major podcasts are sold. And that's been the episode. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. I'm picking an anime next time.
Oh, God.
What we view's connected by cast or crew, deciding the next film, that's the gist. Put it on the list.